Welcome back to the Tectonic Takes podcast, where San Jose Earthquakes are back to being spiritually eliminated, but there's still a slight chance. We'll get into that and some more events involving both San Jose Earthquakes and Austin. We welcome back Hernan from the We Are Austin TV podcast, and we also thank everyone for getting us to 500 subscribers. Thank you for letting us approach that milestone before the end of the season, and we thank all of your support. And we look forward to providing some more great content today. And we'll check in with our panel today featuring Devon, Abram, and starting with Hernan. How are you doing? Welcome back.
Well, thank you guys for having me back. Shout out to my G Devon. He said last time he was like, man, this guy got energy. So I had to make sure I had the same ritual, the same stuff with me. I got a coffee. So, I'm ready to talk San Jose, which I got to say kind of thank you. I don't know. It's weird. We're going to get into that. Ready to talk Austin FC. And, of course, just the end of this season, which is playoffs. We're here. And I think that you said it best. San Jose still has a chance. It's not over yet for them. And honestly, I would love it if you guys got postseason soccer. That way, those 500 subs can turn into 550 and then 600. You know what I'm saying? So, doing good over here, man. Doing good.
There we go. Abram, if we had to describe San Jose Earthquake's position right now, we are that kitten barely hanging in there in one of those motivational posters, right?
Ivan, I think you top yourself for most niche reference, like every few episodes, and it's so impressive. Yes, that is definitely where we're at. That's probably a little bit more positive than it is in my mind. I'm like, in my mind, we're already out, so I can't be disappointed, and I'll just be pleasantly surprised if we do end up making it.
Yeah, most of those posters have the kitten with two paws hanging on a hanger or something. Maybe we're down to one nail, I think. Devin, you'd say that's apt?
I I don't know the reference, but yeah, I'm gonna say yes just to go along with it. Um, yeah,
Yeah, so basically it's just another way of saying it's very, very unlikely, but we're at least playing for something. Uh, it's hard to put in perspective right now. Technically, it is progress, but in all seriousness, I don't blame any San Jose Earthquakes fan that's back to their default pessimistic mode because this has been the story of most of the seasons. Whether we are barely clinging on to the last playoff spot for a chance for that, or we are out of it completely, they're not very much the most optimistic outlooks for a Major League Soccer season. Over the course of 13 seasons now, since 2012 Supporter Shield run, virtually every other MLS team, barring a very few exceptions, have had at least a playoff victory, have finished higher in their respective conference, or something. And this includes a boat full of expansion teams, which will bring us to a U.S. Open Cup final featuring two very new teams in MLS. We'll talk about Austin versus Nashville, and there was several key points in this game. And on one hand, it was decided by a penalty that was scored, but there was also a penalty that did not get converted. So, Hernan, I'll let you set the stage for this first half.
Oh, well, the first half was a roller coaster, man. I mean, I want to start off first with the national anthem. I know that's before the ball was kicked. I'm a big fan of the national anthem because it just kind of sets the mood. It just kind of like gets everybody ready for like battle. And the national anthem that was played in the U.S. Open Cup final. Look, I respect every musician in this world. I am not a musician myself. I'm sure it's very tough to play an electric guitar, let alone try to play the national anthem on an electric guitar. That must be tough. But as soon as it started, mate, I didn't want to say anything to the people around me, but I was like, man, I felt the aura drop. Like I was like, man, this is just tough. I don't know. It was just something that stayed in the back of my head, but that's nothing that has to do with the game. I just wanted to point that out because that's a big talking point down here in Austin. When the first half started, of course, one of the things that really first kind of stuck out was the fact that Coach Nico had switched from a back five, which had brought him success in multiple games. He switched to a back four. I thought it was the wrong decision. However, I'm not the coach. And even then, I can argue about the decision about going to the back four. I do have to admit that chances were created. There was chances for Guilherme Biru, chances for Bugatti, chances for Usuni. There was that penalty that you had asked about. Folks were saying that it was not a penalty on Mirtu. I do think that he was very quick to the ball. He got there first. The Nashville goalkeeper takes a swipe at his legs. Did he sell it a little bit? Sure, but I feel like in today's game, you got to sell your penalty a little bit, and Mirtu Usuni did well in that department. There was some confusion as to who was going to take the penalty kick when Brandon Vasquez is healthy, and here he is the primary shooter. However, with his season-ending injury, that position has kind of opened up, and the ball was first in Osman Bucari's hands. Then it was given to Mirtu Usuni, or Mirtu Usuni took it from Buca. He steps up to the plate, and I just have to get this out of there. To step up to the plate to shoot a penalty in a final, it takes quite the mindset. It takes quite the bravery to do it. Usuni decided that he was going to take it. He felt like he was right for the moment, but the execution for the pen, it just wasn't that of a designated player like Mirto. He's been in bigger stages. He's played in La Liga 2 and in La Liga Granada. He's very loved there. I think he's if I'm not mistaken, he's the historic goal scorer for them. I mean, fans are still in his comments asking him to come back. So it's not like, this guy is just a random Joe. Like, no, this is Mirto Usuni, right? I was just a little bit let down by the way that he took his penalty. I think it was very announced. The way that he opened up his hips, it really told the Nashville goalkeeper, hey, I'm going this side, I'm going low. And even then, the ball wasn't struck with any kind of, threatening force. It was kind of just passed into the back of the net. And when you have that kind of execution, I mean, it gives the goalkeeper a chance. And when you step up to take a penalty, you have 80% to convert it. The keeper only has 20%. You just got to do a little bit better in that department. But like I said, other than that penalty kick, Usuni later came on he later went on to make up for it. Elias Sanchez played a ball to his feet in between Nashville's line. He finishes very nicely in between the Nashville goalkeeper's legs. And the first half was just very bittersweet. You missed the penalty, but you got to go back. Bucari missed a chance 1v1. Guilherme Ribeiro missed a chance in front of goal, which is very rare for him. And of course, Nashville did get their goal. They weren't the better side. They were not the better team of the night. And if I have any criticism for Austin FC, and mainly for the coach, is just why did they switch from the back five to the back four when things were going good? And I think it's just shoulda, coulda, woulda at this point. At one of the most historic moments, probably the most historic moment in Austin FC history, they tried an experiment and it didn't play out.
It's really difficult to make a shift like that during the final. Many teams and many competitions found out the hard way that that's not the time to change something so fundamentally structural to your defensive scheme. Abram.
100%.
Yeah, no problem. So what I wanted to ask is Hernan, if you're the guy making that decision, who's stepping up for you? Because I know Elias is the guy in the commercial against Sean Johnson. He's very smart. I always have to make that reference. My favorite MLS commercial. So, if I'm the guy not knowing Austin FC, that's who I pick. But you've been watching them week in and week out. Who do you pick?
I'm going with Mirtu Usuni 10 out of 10 times, brother. That's the thing, because when everybody saw him step up to take this penalty, they were like, man, everybody was already celebrating it before the penalty was kicked. That's how excited the stadium was. And Mirtu Usuni, he oozes confidence. He has that aura. When he got signed for Austin FC, he was saying that he was here to break records, that he was here to solidify himself in Austin FC history. So the moments, there's no too big of a moment for this guy, right? Because everything that he was saying, the way that he carries himself, the things that he posts on his social media. So 10 out of 10 times, I'm giving that ball to Usuni, which is why I was so surprised, so shocked at the level of execution, because I feel like if he were to take that penalty again, he puts that into the back of the net. But I don't know what happened. I wish I could go back and maybe just give him a little bit of word of advice, like, hey man, this is your moment. I don't know what it was, but I would go with Mirtu Usuni 100%. That's the craziest part.
Yeah.
And sometimes the hardest thing to accept is that probably is fate, because like Quakes fans, we remember the last penalty shootout we had, or one of the most recent ones, was against Kansas City when we got knocked out of the playoffs. For that's not the first time that happened, but Christian Espinosa, who everyone would have picked to take that penalty, even other teams probably would have picked Espinosa to take their penalties. he ended up, getting his penalty saved. And obviously, Melia is a great keeper, but even the man, even the guy that you would 100% back in that moment, he is gonna let you down. And you know what? That's football, right?
It is, mate. It is. It is football, and I think you put it in a great San Jose Earthquakes example. Christian Espinosa is y'all's guy. A matter of fact, I'm a big fan of Christian. During the MLS All Star, I made it our mission to get some quotes from him, to talk to this guy when he was down here in Austin, because I know what he represents to the league. I think he's one of the hardest workers, and he's such a humble guy, right? That's the kind of that's what I get from him. I don't know much about him, just like you guys. I mean, as much as you guys see him week in and week out. You know much more about Christian than I do. But from what I've got from him, I think he's a very humble guy. Like I said, he's a very hard worker, and those are the kind of players that I like, that I really admire. And Mirto Usuni, he is the Christian Espinoza for Austin FC, in the sense that he is that guy. Right now that Brandon Vasquez is not here, the sporting director Borrell said that BV9 was the main DP. Well, he's not here right now, and the main guy is Mirto Usuni. So that's why I would put the ball in his hands to take that penalty 10 out of 10 times. Like, complete confidence in him, and also complete confidence moving forward. If there's a penalty next week, I would want Usuni to also take it for two reasons. Number one, to get it out of his head, and number two, because I know he's going to slot it home.
Yep, similar level of confidence as Allegri showed Pulisic with his penalty miss on the weekend. And that's what you have to be. You can't be focused on that one moment. You have to look at the bigger picture and think about, that's the best option you have. You roll with it. Before we dive into the second half, we'll peel it back a little bit. We'll go Devon and then Abram. Did you feel like either Austin or Nashville had a significant edge over the other, because both of them are in a similar spot in their respective conferences?
I mean, I didn't necessarily watch the game, so I don't know if I have a true opinion to this. I haven't watched the highlights and whatnot, but knowing the build up to the game and listening to other fans' opinions about who may or may not have the advantage, I had kind of thought that admittedly Nashville did have some sort of an upper hand, I think offensively, and we had mentioned this in other podcast, kind of after we had Hernan on the first time. Nashville has incredible attacking prowess. They, for the first half of the season, their winger was, a Golden Boot leader, and now it's being led by, Buanga and Messi, but, he's still up there. And I can't tell you the name right now, but, that goes to show that, Nashville doesn't come to play. They want trophies, they want silverware, their fans want silverware. I'm sure Austin fans want just as much silverware, if not more. Just because of how new, well, not how new they are, but I think you know what I mean. They want their first one, and as an Earthquakes fan, we kind of empathize with that. Like, it's been a long time. We want something. So that being said, I think Nashville kind of came into that game, admittedly as favorites, and it seemed like that's kind of what the narrative of the story was. They persevered, they pushed through, and they ended up with the win. And they stuck to their guns, kind of like Hernan was saying. Like, Nashville or Austin kind of switched gears halfway through the game, or either late in the second half. You don't want to be doing that in a cup final. You don't want to be experimenting in a cup final. If you have something that's good for you, you stick to what's good for you, and you're going to finish off with the win with the things that are good. If you change things up, it's going to throw confusion into the win, and you never know what's going to happen. So I think with that, yeah, Nashville is expected to come home with the upper hand.
And we've seen all sorts of wild 4D chess moves made in the final. The biggest one being Pep Guardiola not starting Rodri in the final against Chelsea. So stranger things have happened, but the worst thing you can do is switch something that doesn't need to be broken. And unfortunately, Austin found themselves against a Nashville team that was very clinical. The goal scorers on the night were the same two that scored virtually all the goals for Nashville, Hani Mukhtar and Sam Surridge, albeit Sam Surridge was from the penalty spot. And Hernan, you mentioned some discussion about the validity of Uzuni's penalty. How did you feel about Surridge's penalty?
Oh my days, bro. that is a whole podcast right there, because the decision to give, I mean, Surge was the one that converted it, right? But I believe it was Palacios, the defender, that ultimately won it. Now, I know a lot of Austin FC fans are going to be like, hey, that was a soft penalty, should have never been called. Yes, I agree with that part, right? I agree that it was very soft. I saw both players kind of tugging at each other, right? The Nashville player was pulling on Danny. Danny had his hands around them or whatnot, trying to limit his movement in the box. But the thing that maybe is not being talked about enough, or even then some Austin fans are kind of like skipping over, is the fact that the referee had gone to Danny Pereira and she spoke to him about what was going on in the box. She said, hey, keep your hands down, no touching, enough. And unfortunately, Pereira, he didn't really calm down what he was doing. If you look at the very, very, very slow replay and zoom in, you see that Palacios kind of pulls Pereira into him as well, you know, kind of enhancing the foul illusion in the box. I heard a lot of criticism for the referee that night. I also included myself, but not just because of the penalty. I mean, I think the entire referee team had gotten multiple calls wrong the entire match. I mean, Nashville's time wasting, the goalkeeper just holding the ball for so long. And although the penalty was a huge factor in this match, I agree 100%. There was other things that Nashville was doing that the referee was not even giving a slap on the wrist or anything for these Nashville players. And I was very disappointed with the refereeing in this match. I think it was not at the level of a cup final. I don't think that it was appropriate. I think that there should have been maybe. I don't want people to say, oh, you're just saying that because it was a whole team of women referees. That's not the case. I think the best referees should be reffing a cup final, and that's just point blank. I don't care if they're a Martian. I don't care if they're from Saturn or from Jupiter. If you are the best at what you're doing right now, you need to be refereeing the cup final. And I think the penalty that Sam Surge converted was soft. I don't. There wasn't even any VAR intervention. There was no monitor looking or anything like that. And at the end of the match, Coach Nico, he had a quote. He was very critical of the refs. He always says that this is why VAR was created, so that a final is not decided by a bad call like that. And I have to agree with him. That is literally why VAR was brought into the game, because before VAR we were saying, oh, that's just soccer. That's the emotion that we love and hate. Those are the controversial calls that keep us watching. But when VAR was instated, when VAR was brought into the picture, you now had an extra tool, another opportunity to make the right decision, to make the right call. And I think this referee was just too proud to say that it wasn't a pen. She stuck to her guns, and you saw what happened. Sam Surridge put it right in between the goal. Very, very cheeky penalty. Very, very mental game kind of penalty. And Brad Stuver, a great keeper, he couldn't do anything. I mean, it was just a very frustrating night, and the penalty didn't help at all. And credit to Surridge for putting it away, because Austin FC had the same opportunity, and Mirtu Suni didn't take it. Sam Surridge, Devon was just saying it, he's battling it out with Messi for the golden boot. He goes up and down. Sometimes he's leader, sometimes he's not. But that's the quality that Sam Surridge has. And they also have a guy like Hani Mukhtar, MVP in 2022. He's fighting for MVP this season. I don't think he will get it this year. But Nashville is a team that knew how to play the final. They're a team that had lost the final already in 2023. And just the penalty, you got to give them credit for them for converting it. But for me, it was soft. It was not the right decision. And I think if they would have gone to VAR to review it, it would have been called back. But to my first point, Danny, if they're talking to you about it, if the referee already pointed it out to you, mate, you got to keep your hands down. That's just the most frustrating part about it, too.
I agree there. It sucks that ended up being another decisive moment. 2 penalties in the final. That rarely happens. One for each side, and both of them, you could argue whether or not they should have been given, particularly that second one. And then Austin went to their rolls of the dice. Nico went with all offensive substitutions, CJ Fadri, Haider Obrian, and John Gallagher. And that's all you can do at that point. You did everything you could, left it all out there. and ultimately for a first Cup final, sucks to be on the losing end. You got to a Cup final, you got to experience that. There's going to be a valuable experience for this team that had a few different eras regarding some DPs that have come and gone in Austin's brief MLS history, but now this team is shaping an identity, and they still have playoffs to look forward to.
You're welcome for that, by the way.
Speaking of, unless you have any final thoughts on that particular U.S. Open Cup final or none?
Well, just the last thing that I want to say is that Austin FC will most likely be back in a cup final. It hurt so much to lose it. It really, really, really did. I know that fans were leaving Q2 Stadium crying. You know, they were very upset. I mean, it was a game at home. Nobody wants to lose a regular season game at home, let alone a cup final. The stadium was absolutely full. It looked like it was about to erupt. There was fireworks. There was so much emotion. And to see Nashville raise a trophy in your stadium, it's kind of deflating. It's kind of demoralizing a little bit. But I want to give credit to the fan base because there was a game at home right after that, literally 72 hours later on Saturday. And there's a music festival. There's a music festival going on right now in Austin. ACL. It's very big. It attracts so many people from all over the world, from all over the country. And Q2 Stadium was still full. After a cup final with so much going on in Austin, Texas, the stadium was still full. And what does that tell me? It tells me that we have a good fan base that supports this team. And I think everybody knows this quote in football where it says, you got to support your team in the good times and in the bad times. And the Austin FC fans showed up in the bad times. They didn't win against St. Louis, but that's another conversation. But what I'm saying is that the fans showed their character, and they showed that there's a proper fan base here. And hopefully Austin FC can repay them with a trophy soon, because this fan base really, really was hurt that day, and they deserve something special, honestly.
Agreed. And once again, congratulations on a great cup run, and wish you the best in trying to get over that hump there. And that's something that many other teams are trying to find. And while Austin, they're currently on a 3-game losing streak. 3 happens to be the margin of defeat that the Earthquakes suffered against Vancouver Whitecaps. And it was a shaky start with both Espinoza and Kikanovic getting early yellow cards. Devon, your thoughts on that beginning to the game?
I think it was too early to start dealing yellow cards, to be honest. I think the ref tried to dictate the flow of play in an awkward way. Like, there were many times in 15-minute segments where, you know, the referee let a lot of, you know, interesting challenges go, but then all of a sudden they started handing off yellow cards. At least at the beginning, you started handing off yellow cards left and right. Like, some of those fouls, those are warnings. Those are warnings at max. You know, blow the foul, let the play stop, let everyone recollect themselves, let play continue. I think sending out early yellow cards like that not only hinders the flow of play in the future, but it also kind of, like, if people are on yellow card accumulation, that hinders the rest of the season. And I think, you know, with calls like that, and especially like penalties and whatnot, that alters a season to a team. And I'm not trying to say, like, you know, those types of calls should be, like, investigated or whatever. Like, they're just calls. They happen. We get upset. Fine. You know, we go to the next game. But there should be some sort of standard of refereeing. Like, if you're going to act this way throughout the entire 90 minutes. And that just wasn't the case. And I think it was really disappointing to see that, because now, you know, in my opinion, two of our best players on the field for that game now had to limit themselves for challenges and tackles and you know, just 50-50 opportunities. And it in my opinion, it ruins the flow of the game. But, you know, everyone may have a different opinion. It's just unfortunate because they just weren't necessarily yellow card worthy tackles.
Yeah, and that is really poor decision making. That is a theme between the two matches we've talked about so far. And with Espinoza, he's very smart with his tackles, especially for a forward. Usually you see a forward get a yellow card and you can just chalk it off to, oh, that's a forward's challenge. But Espinoza, particularly because he's been asked to play as a fullback many times, he has a bit more experience in that department. And then from one tired narrative to another, the San Jose Earthquakes concede a scrappy goal, and it's another unsung young hero for the Whitecaps in this case. It was 18-year-old Ryan Elumi, a young Canadian prospect within the Whitecaps Academy. Very scrappy 1-0 goal. It just felt like anytime you look at textbook how not to defend, San Jose Earthquakes have shown many examples of that this season. It's a big reason why they found themselves in early holes. It's a very similar story to the previous game between Austin and San Jose Earthquakes. Defensive mistakes, defensive lapses, and I think it was just deja vu at that point, Abram.
Yeah, no, I agree. I want to touch on the ref thing just really quick. I think that it's really frustrating that Hernan comes on here and he talks about the ref, and we talk about the refs in our game. And it's just like that's the last thing we want to talk about when we're discussing a soccer game. Well, we're a football podcast, and we come on here and we're like, "Oh, the referees hindered everything," and it's like, "Come on, let them play." That's my thing. It's like we want to watch a game. We don't want to watch arguing for however long. But on that goal, it is also frustrating, almost equally as frustrating as premature yellow cards. Um, the 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 amount of times Sebastian Berhalter got a like different types of dead ball situations to be able to swing it into our box was very frustrating. And whether they were warranted or not, that's a different thing. But it's just like, man, this guy can strike a ball really well. We gotta stop letting him do that, and in fact, stop giving him situations where like you literally can't like. The part of the game is he can swing the ball in and no one can stop him. Like that's what a corner kick is, and so yeah, it was a wide set piece. Danny Meany lost his man. When you're looking at a replay and you see that your center back is behind the striker in that small of an area, it's really like damning. In my opinion, it's hard to say like, oh, he got unlucky there, whatever. You really want to keep track of your man in that tight area. If you are the he's the chief defender in this squad. In the three center backs, he is the most capped, the most experienced. And I know he's not very experienced. He's only 2 years out from being a rookie. But we keep talking about on this podcast how good Danny Meany has been, and then he goes in and does that almost as if to make me look bad. Me personally, no. But yeah, obviously a very frustrating goal to concede, and I think that really kind of opened up the floodgates for Vancouver to continue to do what they did.
Hernan, I'm not sure how much you've watched Vancouver over the course of the season, but what impressed you most when you have the chance to watch them play?
Oh, I know a little bit about Vancouver, mate. They gave us a beat down, 5-0 or 5-1 once before. So I got a little bit on Vancouver. Although at the end of the day, their victory over San Jose ended up helping Austin FC clinch playoffs. So maybe I gotta watch out what I'm gonna say about these guys. But one thing that's really impressed me, I mean, obviously, is number one, I gotta send a shout out to a guy that maybe doesn't get enough praise, and it's their goalkeeper, Takaoka. I think he's a great goalkeeper. He was here for All Star. It's a language barrier kind of thing where he didn't really speak much. Because his English, I'm sure even he thinks this is obviously not as good as a guy like Brad Stuber, right? But he still spoke with the media. He still got to say his things. He was very proud to be here, whatnot. One of the hardest working goalkeepers in MLS. I think he did a great job when it came to CCC. They absolutely demolished Cruz Azul, but that's maybe the unlikely hero. The guy that gets all the praise, I mean, you got to give it up to Brian White. I mean, this is a dude that knows what he's doing in front of goal. The day that it was up to Brandon Vasquez or to Brian White to secure that MLS position in Poch's roster, Brian White scored 4 on Austin FC. 4, literally 4 goals on Austin. And I think that kind of solidified that conversation. But other than that, I think they also have a really good guy in Sebastian Berhalter, ex-Austin FC player. Scored a banger versus San Jose. I'm sorry to mention it, boys, but it was a banger. It was a banger. And even he posted something on his Instagram story, and he said that goal was for the people in the back. And I screenshot it and I sent it to the chat. I was like, nah, man, that goal was for the people in Austin, not the people in the back. And so I think they have a complete team. I think Vancouver is a very solid team. when it comes to the playoffs, you obviously don't want to see them. They're a possibility for Austin FC this year. And although we've had some okay moments against Vancouver, I think they're a more complete team than Austin FC. I think Austin FC has some pieces that they need to improve for next year in order to be at that level, because Vancouver is a team that can play two competitions at once. Not in the same night, but in 1 week they can play two different competitions. Austin, every time they had to play an Open Cup and MLS in the same week, it got really bad for them. And that's just the kind of team that Vancouver is right now. I don't want to say that they're the GOATs of MLS, because they're not. But they were a very solid team this year. I got to give them props.
Yeah, congratulations to the Whitecaps as well. They're champions of the Canadian Championship against the Vancouver-based team in the Canadian Premier League. So a big moment for the city of Vancouver and one of two host Canadian cities for the World Cup. So things are buzzing in Vancouver, and their biggest goal contributor showed out in this game, Sebastian Berhalter, 10 assists and 4 goals on the season. A creative spark plug when they've been needing someone to step up. Before Mueller came in, they've been missing Ryan Gold for a lot of the season. And Ryan Gold had the perfect scenario to come in late for the San Jose Earthquakes to get some more fitness in before the World Cup. And all he does is he provides an assist for Berhalter's 3rd goal contribution of the night. And a questionable or interesting decision was Bruce's first move from the bench was to put in Buck for Ian Harkes. And then Bolleru shows up in the 79th minute, and he only needs 10 minutes to score. Devon, I know you have some thoughts. Go for it.
I think the majority of Earthquakes fans, at least from what we've seen in our Discord server, it's just like, why are we not playing Bolleru? Week in, week out, when he's on the field, he surpasses expectations from head coach to normal fan, casual fan, dedicated fan. Bolleru is the guy that you want on the field. If there's a player that Austin FC were to snipe from us that's affordable, I feel like it would be Bolleru. I don't want you guys to do that. I don't want you guys to do that, obviously, but he's the kind of guy that every team would love to have on their team. And sure enough, he gets subbed on, and almost immediately he sets an impact to score a goal back from I think a 4-0 deficit or something like that. Yeah, I absolutely love having Bolleru on the field, but it's just way too late. And past the 75th minute, past the 70th minute, it's not going to lead to as much of an impact as maybe the 60th or 55th. I see Abram raising his hand. Passing it to you.
I'm waiting for you to finish, bro.
No, go for it.
Don't worry about it. Okay. I don't know. I wanted to raise this. I don't know if you remember, but last time you were here, we were praising Bolleru like crazy. You had to look up his stats. And in that game, we ended up losing the game against you guys. But do you remember that streak where Bolleru picked up the ball in his own half and then ran past like 4 of you guys? And then nothing came of it, unfortunately. But did that make an impression on you?
Dude, when y'all first mentioned him, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to have to keep an eye on this guy. And then whenever that game did come around, I felt like I knew something that a lot of people didn't know. I was like, dude, that's Bolleru. Like, that's him. You know what I'm saying? And just like you said, although it didn't end up in anything in that sequence, you see the individual quality that this guy has. And, Devon said that if there's any player that if there's any player that Austin FC would poach from you guys, it would be Bolleru. Well, I don't think it's just Austin FC. I think a lot of teams in the league would benefit from having a young kid like that. And that's a really good question, and the one that you guys are asking. Why did he come on so late in an important game like it was versus the Whitecaps? Just like you said, he only needed, 5-10 minutes to make an impact. Those are the kind of players that you want on your team week in and week out, starting. Not off the bench, starting. Unless he was dealing with an injury, unless he was dealing with some serious fatigue. I mean, he's a young lad. You got to be playing him. And also, literally, as soon after we finished that pod where we had talked about this guy, he did something he did like a feature with somebody. I think it was, maybe it was like Urban Pitch or something like that, where he did like a mini interview. And I was like, okay, with Fabi. Shout out to my G. And I watched it and I was like, it feels good to know who Bolleru is before this came out, because I feel like I'm watching a movie that was recommended to me and it ended up being good. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what I felt like. And And yeah, I would take Bolero. I would take this guy in Austin FC, especially right now. I mean, Austin has two good midfielders, two very young, talented midfielders in Danny Pereira and Owen Wolf. But, you know, you have guys like Elias Sanchez, who is great, is talented, is a leader, is phenomenal. He's not that young of a man anymore, right? You have guys like Dubersarski, who has not panned out. You have guys like Salovic, who has not panned out. And a guy like Bolero, he knows the league. He knows what it is to travel from California to the East Coast, to the South, to the North, right? He knows what it is to travel in this country. And I think that has a lot to do with how players approach and how players handle MLS. The travel is not like what you see in Europe. And this is a guy that has everything down. He checks a lot of the boxes that you would need for a proper MLS player. And that's my take on Mr. Bolero. I like him.
Yeah, I'm glad that you enjoyed him. I do have some more insight on Bolero. We were going to release the press conference, but the audio was messed up, so we didn't do that. So I asked Bruce Arena, why not? Why no Bolero? He has played so much of the season so far, and a lot of people are very curious, right? And I obviously, Bruce Arena is not going to give you the most in-depth answer on this kind of thing. But what he did say, I felt like we could, parse enough from that, where he said that, it was my decision. And he said that he felt that Bolero slowed down at a certain stage of the season, and that we had acquired a new midfielder in Ronaldo Vieira, and so that's going to put him back down the pecking order. But in my opinion, right, I'm disagreeing with Bruce Arena, which is obviously not a situation everyone wants to be in. But I think that even a slowed down Bolero provides more to this team than any of our other midfielders. And I'm not gonna crap on our midfielder. I think that they all have strength in certain areas, but Bolero has he's almost as good as each of them in their best area. He's a great defender. He's a great passer of the ball. He can progress through the midfield very well. I just fully disagree with Bruce Arena there, and I also was able to ask Bolero himself, in this game where you were only on in the 80th minute, do you think that you would have been able to make more of an impact had you started? And I don't think that he actually gave me as good of an answer as Bruce did, because he was just so upset. You could see the result of the game really affected him, and he was just not in a good place to be answering questions. So he said yes, but he really didn't want to get too into it. He said that I got to back myself, but it's the coach's decision.
Yeah, I think that's kind of telling too. I mean, with a player who just scored a goal, and every time he scores, his social media lights up like a firework, And when you see him kind of down on himself like that, that's very telling of where he's at in the team right now, and essentially, it's just so disappointing. It's really disappointing to see someone go through something so significant like Bolero is, and I feel really bad because he deserved that goal, obviously, and he deserves to celebrate and be happy and have his teammates support him, but it just doesn't seem like anyone is cohesive in that environment that the San Jose Earthquakes are bringing forth right now. Even despite the San Diego win, there's just nothing to bring forward to any fans' cases that there's anything
Devon,
to look forward to.
Devon, can I ask you a question real quick? I want to ask you specifically. Do you feel, because I remembered Bruce Arena said this, that he felt that Bolero was getting bullied in midfield because he's not necessarily physically ready. Is that something that you get from Bolero? Ivan, you too, because we watch him every week. I don't know if that's the case, in my opinion.
No, I don't see that at all. I don't see him getting bullied in the midfield. He's making successive, progressive passes, and he does it in a way where it's not rushed. When he's in possession, he looks around, he finds an open player, and he distributes. A lot of the times, our midfielders like Vieira and like, not necessarily like Harks or whatnot, but, people who sub in to replace Harks, and I can't think of specific, like Mac, I guess, for example. Like, we are the San Jose Earthquakes community. We should be allowed to kind of call these guys out and let people know what's up. But in that regard, like, we see people like Vieira making forward dribbles and then they pass it to no one. Bo LaRue has a successful pass rate to the wingers and to other midfielders and other distributing players. We don't see that in many other players. So I don't really see why Bruce is making this assessment about Bo, because it doesn't feel right.
This late into the season, do you think there are any players that are being frozen out or not as many minutes as they got earlier in the season that you'd like to see get a little bit more of extended run, potentially in one of the last 2 MLS games this season?
Well, just real quick before I give my take on any player from Austin, I just want to. I went to Bo LaRue's social media real quick. I'm looking at the highlight reel of the goal, and literally the 4 first comments. Max Aladez, he says, "So our only goal scored by a kid everyone is asking to start? Who would have thought that?" The second comment, "The guy that's supposed to be starting, you mean?" The third comment, "Is that enough for Bruce to realize you should always start Bo in big games?" And I'll read just one more. Mr. Estrada, he says, "Shoulda have always started." I mean, if it's as easy for folks at home on social media to be noticing these kind of things, you'd think that a soccer brain like Bruce Arena, something is weird here. Something is weird here. You'd think that he should be recognizing this guy's talent. I'm wondering if maybe Bruce is, I don't know, guys. I mean, we gotta also be real. Bruce Arena is not a sweetheart when it comes to U.S. soccer, right? We all know who Bruce Arena is in this landscape. I'm wondering if it's a little bit of coach pride. I'm wondering if maybe Bo LaRue had, I don't know the kid at all, but sometimes you say some things that maybe you don't mean when you're in the heat of the moment. Maybe he let out a comment that didn't sit right with coach, who ultimately makes the decisions. We know that Bruce Arena, what kind of character he has, what kind of coaching style he has, and I'm wondering if they're just bumping heads, if there's like a clash of heads there, because if it's as simple as for us to be saying it on the pod, if it's as simple for people to be commenting on social media, why is it not happening on the pitch? I think there's something there that's behind the scenes that we just don't know about. I mean, you guys are probably maybe sniffing at it, maybe you like see it or whatnot, but me from the outside in, just off of the comments on social media and hearing you guys, and we already talked about Bo LaRue before, and he's not a starter for you guys in this crucial part of the season. Something's up. Something is up, mate. And on the Austin part, if there's any players that I think are maybe being frozen, should be seeing minutes, it's sad because our bench is not. They're not giving you if it's not CJ Fodre, it's nobody. And it's very sad because you have guys like Robert Taylor on there who won the Leagues Cup with Messi in Miami, and he was a crucial part of that Leagues Cup run. And when he came to Austin, he's been erased. He's been eliminated. Coach Nico is a very good coach. He doesn't throw his players under the bus. I've asked him before. I said, "Hey, coach, where's Robert Taylor? What's his status? Why is he not getting any minutes?" He said that it's just everybody is working really hard, and it's about internal competition, and he's just not winning that battle. But then I see the guy that's winning that battle in Jadero Obrian, and he is nothing. He's not better than Robert Taylor. They're both battle amid. They're both battle amid, and I hate to say it. The Austin bench is terrible right now, and if it's not CJ or even sparks of veteran Diego Rubio, it's the starting 11 or nothing for Austin FC, and that's a problem. It's a big problem.
Not even Gallagher when he comes off the bench?
Well, see, the thing is that Gallagher, they've kind of sent him back to a defensive role. He's either playing right back or he's playing left back. And although he does the job, he's a hard worker. He's a journeyman kind of guy. He does what the coach says. He's one of the most professional players I've ever seen, in this sport in MLS, because his ability to change chip mentally in 90 minutes to play one position, to go to another position, to go to a different position next week. Not a lot of players can do that, but he's been reduced to a defensive role when he himself has told us on the pod. He said, "Yeah, I do the job on defense, but I'm a winger. I'm a guy that likes to go forward." And I think he's just being his qualities are not being used at the best because he's now reduced to this defensive role. And yeah, I do want to give credit to Johnny G, but the reality is that I wish he had more minutes in the attack, and a lot of Austin fans will also say that.
Yeah, I guess it's a similar comparison to another Irish player. He did represent Ireland before England, Jack Grealish. He was kind of boxed into a lack of a spark in Manchester City, and then he just scored a game winner for Everton in dramatic fashion over the weekend. So yeah, if there's any Irish people watching this, the fact that I just mentioned Jack Grealish is probably gonna make them shut off this video. But yeah, I think that Gallagher, we've seen him perform very well in a variety of different roles, but it's exciting to see him in the wing play. And when you're lacking that excitement, if you're deciding between Yadar Overian, who has been in his MLS peak, maybe a third option off the bench, versus Robert Taylor, who for whatever reason isn't getting opportunities, but we know what his ceiling is. If neither of those options are appealing, putting Gallagher up there would be another option to consider. And I want to take time to look at what MLS is looking like going into their last week plus of regular season. We'll go through the East real quick because that doesn't concern either of our teams, and also all 9 teams in the playoffs are locked in. It's just a matter of position shuffling. And it looks like Philadelphia Union have locked in the Eastern Conference and potentially the Supporters Shield. Vancouver could still catch them, but Philadelphia would just need one more point. And then second place Cincinnati, third Inter Miami, fourth Charlotte, fifth NYC, sixth Nashville. So they have a little bit of momentum with the U.S. Open Cup. Seventh Orlando. And then 8th and ninth, surprises for different reasons. Chicago Fire, congratulations on making the playoffs. But Columbus Crew, I think that's kind of disappointing. But yeah, they're in the playoffs, but ninth, that's the lowest they've finished in the Wild. Any thoughts on Eastern Conference before we go into the West? And I'll open that to anyone.
I want to say one thing real quick. Both of our teams would be cooked in the Eastern Conference this year, mate. We would be cooked. I just looked at the East right now. Columbus is at the bottom of that barrel with 51 points, mate. We're 11 points off when we're talking about the final position in the Western Conference. So sometimes you got to be thankful that you're in the West. What did LeBron say? I'm good in the West. I'm good in the West, right? That's us right now. I'm good in the West right now. You know, people always like to say that the West is bad or whatever. A lot of the times the West battles the East and ultimately takes chips away from them. So I just want to point that out. We would be cooked in the East, but it is what it is. It is what it is.
I think it might have been John Morant, but I get what you mean.
Oh, my bad. I said LeBron. My bad. John Morant, shout out to my G. Better than Zion Williams, if you ask me. Zion the flop. John Morant did a lot better, although he's trying to play gangster.
Yeah, so ninth place Columbus Crew, to their credit, I know I just kind of crapped on them there, but they would be fifth ahead of Seattle Sounders in the West. But even still, like, when you just think of Columbus Crew and ninth in the same sentence, that hasn't been the case for them in a long, long time,
100%.
Especially with the likes of Darlington Nagbe, who just announced that he'll be retiring at the end of the MLS season, and he's MLS Hall of Fame right there.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like if you talk to any pro from that era, they'll say like one of the best players they ever played with, Darlington Nagbe. And this is like someone like Dax McCarty who has like played with Thierry Henry, and it's like no, Darlington Nagbe. And he's a great player, but unfortunately, obviously, didn't really culminate in anything crazy substantial for the U.S. Obviously a great player and perennial midfielder for them, but no, I think a very underrated player, and I don't think a lot of people realize just how good he was.
All right, on to the West. So San Diego's currently up top with 60 points, but they only have one game left. Vancouver have 2 games left, so they're tied with San Diego on 60 points, but they got a slight edge there. Third place Minnesota United, 58 points. Fourth place LAFC, and they still have 3 games left to play. So LAFC, you're going to have to squeeze out 270 minutes of regular season action still. And then fifth, Seattle Sounders, 49 points for the game in hand. And sixth, Austin, 44 points for the game in hand. 77, Portland, 44 points, 1 game left. Eighth, Dallas, and ninth, Real Salt Lake, both with games in hand. So we'll see what Dallas and RSL do with that, and that really is where the San Jose Earthquakes lie. As of now, the San Jose Earthquakes barely have a chance in the playoffs. and that chance could be evaporated before decision day happens if Dallas and Real Salt Lake pick up points. And same could be said for Colorado Rapids. So let's talk a little bit about some storylines for Austin here. So most likely playing defense, trying to hold on for that sixth spot where it could be Minnesota, it could be LAFC. But also you have a bit of a leg up definitely against Houston, who are out of the playoffs, and Dallas, most likely you're going to be finishing above Dallas. So any words for the Texas Cup rivalry?
Well, I will say that the rivalry between the Dallas teams, it didn't really go in Austin's favor this year. Didn't get a victory over them in regular season. You did beat the Houston Dynamo in the Open Cup. That was a great run. But in league play, it was not good for Austin FC against Texas teams. They did not get one victory. They dropped points twice against the Texas teams. They played Houston, tied 2-2. They played Dallas literally back to back. They tied 1-1, and both of those games, Austin FC should have won them. And those are points that if you look at it right now, you say, oh well, if Austin FC wouldn't have dropped those points, the playoff picture would have been a little bit more different for them. They maybe would have been fighting for that fifth position with Seattle, or maybe solidified their spot in sixth a little bit more. When it comes to the playoffs, I just don't want to see LAFC. I think Austin has a chance against anybody else. And it's not that LAFC is some kind of god team or everybody should be scared of them or whatnot. But the reality is that they're the hot hand right now with Heung-min Son. They're the hot hand with Denny Bouanga. And, we have to see them real soon on Sunday because of a weather delay, because of the floods that were here. But without those two players, I'm very interested to see what this LAFC side looks like, because then maybe if you develop a game plan where you can maybe lock down Heung-min Son, maybe shut down Denny Bouanga, kind of like what you did against Sam Surridge in that Open Cup final. He only had that penalty chance. You could have a chance against this LAFC side. But if you ask me, mate, if you guys ask me who do I want in the playoffs, I'm going with Minnesota, because I've traveled to Allianz for the semifinal of the U.S. Open Cup. I have to say, beautiful stadium. The fan base erupted when they scored that free kick versus Austin. I don't know if I'll go back. I didn't really like the city, if I'm being real. I thought it was rough. I'm not gonna lie. Minneapolis is rough. I've never been to that part of the country, but it's kind of rough. I'm not gonna lie. And also, yeah, that in that game, Yaboa was hurt, and they also let go of a big player to Villarreal. So I'm looking at Minnesota as, hey, let's lock in those guys. Hopefully they don't lose their spot. LAFC, just like you said, Ivan, is pushing for that third place position there. They still have games in hand. But, I would rather see them more than anybody else in the 2025 MLS Cup playoffs. But that's if Austin finishes sixth. The way that they played in recent games, they've lost 3 consecutive games for the first time this year. They could slip up into a lower position from sixth, and then if that happens, just pray. Just pray.
Yep. Of course, with Tania Luashei starting for Villarreal against Real Madrid, that's the level of talent that Minnesota United no longer have at their disposal in their attack. And their solution would have been, okay, well, we had Kelvin Yeboah before Luashei anyway, but now he's hurt. So just based on that would be the only reason why I would agree that you'd much rather face Minnesota than LAFC. But otherwise, Minnesota United, they're built for the playoffs. They can grind out these tough games. So definitely some sluggers throughout the Western Conference, even if the point totals are lower for maybe the latter half of the playoff teams. So any thoughts on any of the other Western Conference teams before we talk about the last San Jose Earthquakes game of the season? Devon and then Abram.
I'm looking at the table right now. LAFC is on 31 matches played. That's the least amount in our Western Conference, and they're sitting at 56 points, while San Diego's sitting at 60. So, LAFC still has a chance to be, Western Conference champions. Let's keep that in mind because of how their form is over the last month. They've been winning 5, I think they won 5 straight. And, kind of like what Hernan said, they have Denny Bouanga, they have Heung-min Son. No one's been able to stop them, and I don't believe that anyone will be able to stop them. I think I genuinely believe that this is a force that can take to the MLS Cup final, and it's really hard to stop these two front runners and anyone else on that team for that matter, just because the chemistry is so high. I believe Minnesota will end up sitting fourth by decision day at least. LAFC, Vancouver, and San Diego will be fighting it out on decision day for the top spot. I mean, for San Jose, we'll probably get into this, but it's very grim. But I want Abram to relay his thoughts first before we go into that.
Yeah, my thoughts are I'm here listening to Hernan pick who he'd like to face, and I'm like, I just want to be in playoffs. Like, I'm not even thinking about who I'm going to come up against. I'm just hoping to be there. But yeah, I'm like, bring it on, whoever's there.
I really believe I really believe that any team that makes it into the Western Conference playoffs can go on and win the playoffs. Well, go on and make the final. After that, it's a 50-50 versus whoever's coming out from the East. But we've seen times where Portland makes it to a final, and you had nobody was betting on them. Nobody was betting that Portland would have made any kind of final. They're not in any kind of form, and that's just the playoffs. I hear a lot of Austin fans down here talk about, oh, well, we're not going to do anything in the postseason. We're not going to do anything playoff-wise, right? Austin kind of backed their way into the playoffs because of certain teams did certain things that got them into this party, right? But the reality is that Austin has also done good things throughout the whole year that has got them in a position to hang on to. Now we're the little kitten hanging on to the number 6. That's us. Devon is like, I still don't know what you guys are talking about, but now we're the little kitten hanging on, right? And it's because of the things that Austin FC did earlier this year, right? And so I really think that any team that makes it into the playoffs has a chance at making it to the Western Conference final and then going on to the MLS Cup final. I really do believe that. And it's just about first, it's just about making it to the playoffs. And then after that, you play what is the playoffs. It's a completely different competition. It's a whole nother beast. Literally, Seattle is known for throwing away a season, still making it to playoffs, and having a great playoff run. That's Seattle. Tell me if I'm lying. Tell me if I'm lying, guys. That's literally Seattle. That's their game plan year after year.
I think Hernan earlier in the podcast definitely alluded to something serious in the Earthquakes, and I believe that is the discomfort that I think Bruce gives to a lot of the players. And if Hernan is saying something like that, and he's not even an Earthquakes fan, he's seeing those types of things and he's seeing those patterns, then something is serious. And yeah, I think Hernan is right that there is some sort of issue going on. It stemmed from I'm pretty sure it stemmed from Hernan leaving San Jose Earthquakes because all of our top players, Josef, Chicho, Espinoza, all of their forms dipped. And maybe you are right, Hernan, that there is some sort of personal things going on between Bo and Bruce. But I think a good professional coach would determine the difference of, personal issues should be resolved outside of the sport, and issues within tactics should be resolved on the field. And if you can't resolve those differences of personality issues and player issues, then I really don't want to see you coach the Earthquakes or any other team for that matter. I think you've lost your head. And if that's the case, then I really don't want to see Bruce back next year because it seems like there's a lot of personal issues going on. And I really don't want to see my players kind of go through those emotional wrangles. And kind of going back to what Ivan's question was, like, what do we see in our team? We had a dip in form. We could be making playoffs. We could be in a playoff position, I think, if we kept Hernan Lopez. Those types of decisions make or break a team. They broke the Earthquakes. And now we're sitting at 11th place, 33 games played, at 38 points. There's a lot that is riding on the line for us. We are reliant on other decisions. We're reliant on other results. FC Dallas, Real Salt Lake, still sitting at 32 matches played. They can keep tallying the points, and that's one less spot that we can occupy in playoffs. We have to control our own destiny, and that starts from the head coach. That starts at the GM. That starts at whatever else Bruce holds himself as a role in the team. Everywhere else, that starts all the way up top. and it trickles down to the players, and the current player form is just not good enough to see us make playoffs. As much as I want to see us make playoffs, I will be brutally honest and say we don't deserve it.
Yep, it's the same old crap. I'm sorry to say this, but that's the point I'm at with the San Jose Earthquakes. And I will be wearing my jersey. I'll be going to games. Like, I'll be supporting this team no matter what. But this is why people have been checked out from this team. This is why we all have friends that haven't followed the San Jose Earthquakes in years, because they check back maybe every now and then. They get an ESPN notification and they say, oh yeah, that's the San Jose Earthquakes I knew from much of the Wondolowski days. This is the San Jose Earthquakes I've known at Buckshot. Like, this is the San Jose Earthquakes, This is their destiny. And they can change that. But despite, we've had some great coaches come and go with all the pedigree. Great MLS coaches, Luchi Gonzalez, great international coaches like Matias Almeida. Bruce Arena is just a great U.S. soccer coach in general. And this leads into what I hope to see regardless of what happens between now and Decision Day. What I want to see in this Quakes game in Decision Day is just go all out attack. You have Bo LaRue, who is very dynamic. I want to see the death lineup of Espinoza, Arango, and Martinez start the game. Give Buda and Judd at least 25 minutes each off the bench. Like, I want to see at least 2 to 3 goals and go out down swinging, whatever happens. That's all I have for the Quakes. Any last expectations or wishes for what you want to see for the Quakes lineup? Abram, then Devon, and then Hernan, I'll give you the same question. What do you want to see from Austin these last few games?
No, I think that you made a good point, Evan. I think that we need to see exciting football, whether we win or lose, because that's really all we have left to hope for. I mean, obviously there is still some mathematical, anomaly that sees us enter the playoffs. But that's not what I'm going to be, holding out hope for. I've held out hope for too long, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, Ivan, I agree with what you said about I want to see our big three up top. Whether I don't know if they deserve to be playing right now, but I would like to see it. And I like to see Bo LaRue back in the lineup, whether Bruce wants to be playing him or not. He's a really good player. He's one of the bright spots of the season. And can we, where's Romney? Do we lose him? You know what I mean? It's like we've been having this rookie backline, and it worked well against San Diego, but I think we all got here last week and talked about that's not really sustainable to keep trotting out the kids and then hoping that they'll stop one of the best teams in the league. It happened against San Diego as a fluke almost, because they kept missing their shots, and then we're like, okay, we'll do the same thing against Vancouver. And obviously they couldn't stop some Berhalter bangers, so I'm not going to blame 100% of the game on them, obviously, but no, it's not looking great.
Gosh, I would love to see Bo LaRue over Vieira. I know Vieira's a great defender. I think Bo is as well. And Bo provides, kind of like Abram said earlier, like a lot more to the game, not retrospectively, but holistically than other players do individually. I would love to see, most of our games are lost through midfield pressure, I feel like. Because when Berhalter scored that banger, no one stepped up to the plate for him. Vieira was deep in that 6 when he's not supposed to be that 6. He should have been the one to step up. Everyone was basically on the back line at that point. Your pressure starts at your attack, and then the midfield, and then the defense. That's the line of pressure. And we didn't have that midfield pressure to, kind of push on Vancouver. We need a change. We need players who can defend the way that the team needs to defend. And I don't see that in some of the players we start now. We need a lineup change. Simple as that. And I think that includes a lot of players that we're used to seeing succeed. Rodriguez, I don't know what's going on between he and Bruce. Again, multiple players discussed here. We need to see Rodriguez on the field. He wasn't even in the 18. He didn't even fly to Vancouver. He was here in San Jose. What's going on? We need to see Rodriguez. We need to see Romney, other older players who have the caliber, the experience necessary to see out a game, to see out a victory.
We're
Daniel
playing
Muni's all
Switch
right.
early in the season.
Exactly, yeah. Um, and even like Muni in between them, I'm okay with Muni. You know, everyone makes mistakes, but as I think we lose Hernan, hopefully we can reconnect in a second. But yeah, we need to see those starter caliber players that we all know as Earthquakes fans deserve to be on the field and, you know, make a great impact for the team, especially on decision day where, you know, everyone's heart's out on the line. And they're pushing to, you know, make a game as exciting as it can be.
Real quick, I have an update on Dewan Jones. While we were waiting for the press conference to start, I was able to ask the Earthquakes PR. He told me that Jones is a week-to-week thing. They don't think they can't say right now whether or not he'll be out for the rest of the season. But like every week, they check back in. They see how his status is, and he hasn't yet been cleared to play. So you know we could see Dewan Jones make an appearance before the end of the season, but we shouldn't be too worried about his long-term fitness. I think next season he'll probably be back up and running. But that's just a quick little update on Dewan Jones that I had.
Thank you for that update, Abram. And Ernan, we'll close with you. What's something you're looking to see for Austin in their last two regular season matches?
Well, I would be a liar if I would say that I want to see San Jose in the playoffs. If you guys make it in, I know it would be difficult. It would be very, very difficult, you know, for those things to kind of match up. But I feel like every time Austin plays San Jose, it's a really difficult game for Austin. It's never, you know, kind of like, it's never easy. It's never a walk in the park. People will say whatever they want about the Quakes. I feel like versus Austin, there's a little bit, not a rivalry, right? It's not a rivalry, but it's like, it's a very good game when Austin plays the Quakes. And I think for a very long time, Austin had like never beaten the Quakes. It was just draw, draw, draw. It was very, very, very difficult for Austin. But other than that kind of part of things, like what I want to see moving forward for Austin in the playoffs, I would like to see them kind of go back to what has worked for them. I'm a big advocate of that back five for Austin FC. I know a lot of folks are maybe associating or will associate a back five with being more defensive than anything. But what I like about Austin's back five is that they have two really good fullbacks in either Mikel Dessler on the right or John Gallagher. And you also have Guilherme Biro on the left, and he also has a great substitution, a great partner. Sometimes he starts Komanich. Those two fullbacks, they're able to push up and help the midfield really create a lot of opportunities for the guys up top, like Osuni, Bucari. With Vasquez out, Rubio has to, you know, definitely step up. But I want to see them go back to things that have worked for them. I want to see them go back to things that have gave them results. The experiment in the final, it happened. We have to move on. But it's data at this point. It's now data. What worked for you? What didn't work for you? What can you kind of, you know, put into the back of your pocket and say, hey, this is what I'm gonna move forward with. You know what happens when you put these guys out on the pitch. And if we're being real, Coach Nico, this is his first team. This is his first year with this team. A lot of this stuff is data for him. He has one more year on contract. But I want to see these guys really give the playoffs a go. You lost the Cup final at home. You lost the game against St. Louis at home, which was 72 hours later when the fans expected a response from the team. It is what it is. You still clinched playoffs. You kind of backed up into it, sure, but you also did a lot of good things during the regular season. Although you lost Brandon Vasquez, it was very difficult to, you know, kind of get this team really going, really gelling in a way where they were getting results. And I just want to see them give the playoffs a go. Give it a go, no matter who you play. Do not respect anybody, because just because a team is in first place or second place or even third does not mean that you have to respect them when you play them. Treat them like anybody. Treat them like they're the last place team, although you did play St. Louis and they weren't playing for anything and they still beat you at home. But what I'm trying to say is have no respect for the team that's in front of you. Treat them like anybody just on any given day. And I want to see fight. I want to see heart. I want to see energy from this Austin FC side moving forward in the playoffs, because you literally have nothing to lose anymore. You lost the Cup final at home. The heart has already been ripped out of the fans' chests. At this point, just give it your go. Give it the best you can in the playoffs. And like I mentioned earlier, once you make it into playoffs, I think anybody has a real shot at making it to that MLS Cup final. So I want to see heart, I want to see passion, and I want to see freaking energy from the guys. And I'm not saying that they haven't done it before. I'm just saying keep it up.
I really want to see conversion from grief to fuel. That's what I want to see from Austin. There's something like as a coach and as an instructor from skiing, like if you get down, like if you fall down, you lose a ski, you lose a snowboard, whatever, put it back on your feet, keep going. Like you said, Hernan, like it turns into data. Like this is an experience. You've learned from this experience. You move forward. But this is also football. Like you turn that emotion into something that fuels you, that fuels the fans, that fuels the organization, the team. You lose at home, you lose a final at home, and you convert that into fuel to push yourself and motivate yourself to train extra hard, to individually train yourself, to push yourself to that limit that you possibly can as a human being over the line. And I would hope to see that. I'm actually kind of looking forward to seeing Austin in playoffs in the days to come, to see how they react to it. Because I totally believe Austin has the ability to convert grief to fuel, and someone needs to light it. I don't know who it is, but someone needs to light it.
And one last thing, you hit something perfect, mate. When we were doing fan reactions outside of Q2 after that cup final, literally, if it was, I'm just gonna put it into numbers. If it was 10 fans that got on the mic, 9 of them destroyed Usuni. They destroyed him. And honestly, when you're in a cup final and you miss a penalty like that, I mean, the fans are gonna say what the fans feel. But one thing that really stuck with me from that cup final is the fact that Usuni did not let that penalty miss affect the rest of his game. He got a goal literally minutes later after that. And a lot of the times when coaches are scouting young players, I've heard this from scouts, and I've also seen it like on TikTok videos and yada yada. One of the things that they look at is their reaction to when they make a mistake. Usuni's reaction to the penalty miss, I loved it. I loved that he said, you know what, I missed it. I got my big boy boots on. Ilya, give me the ball, and he slotted it in between Nashville's goalkeeper's legs. He's the only player that scored a goal for Austin FC that day, and he got the most criticism out of everybody. He missed the penalty, sure, but he still had the character to not let himself down and still try to carry this team forward to lift their first ever trophy.
No, that's the thing that I loved about Matias Almeida when he's on the team. Sorry, I'll give the rein back to Ivan.
Bro.
But
Love Almeida.
The one thing that I loved about Almeida is he kind of taught our players, you lose the ball, you're the one that passed it away, go back and recover. Your other teammates, they know exactly what's going to happen. They'll put themselves in a position to recover and to kind of, cover your position as you go down, track back what you lost. You know what I mean? That's the kind of fire that I want to see in not even the Earthquakes, Austin FC in playoffs, or any player for that matter. Because if you want to get scouted, you want to make an effort for a highlight reel, and that's exactly what you need to do. You make that. Yeah, Almeida had led Sevilla to a 4-1 victory over Barcelona. Like it's that type of mentality. Like he's successful everywhere he goes, except for the Earthquakes. But that's what you want in the players. You want to see that vigor. You want to see that fight, that fire under your feet. There's not much else to say besides that. And I really hope that both teams, especially the Earthquakes, as a biased Earthquakes fan here, can show out that fire under their feet at PayPal Park.
Yeah, great messages to end this podcast. Frankly, the last 5 or 6 contributions to this conversation all could have been fitting ends to this story, and that's where Austin and San Jose Earthquakes tie their destinies together. Like, finish strong, put the pain of yesterday away, and see what happens. For San Jose Earthquakes, it's out of your hands, but you just play until the season's over, and hopefully there can be some pieces to pick up ahead of next season if it ends on October 18th. And considering all the following along we did for Austin's journey this season, those journeys collided in the U.S. Open Cup when our teams faced, and we got to see some more big games from them. We wish them well in the playoffs. And with our playoff coverage idea of we're going to try to get representatives from different teams, podcasters, writers, journalists, whoever, to kind of debate their teams. And depending on how the playoffs fall, we may see you again pretty soon yet. And you mentioned your fan reactions videos. Definitely check out their YouTube channel. Very passionate, very exciting. We'll provide the links to that down below. It'll be the same as the ones earlier this week, season, but we thank you for your time again, Hernan.
No, dude, thank you guys for having me on here. You know, as soon as you sent me the invite, I was like, hey, man, don't worry. I got it. I will be there. I really like the chemistry that we've kind of developed with the guys on this pod. Honestly, I feel like we've been knowing each other for quite some time. So anytime that you guys want to have me on here, just send the message and I will be here, mate. Tectonic Takes and WeAreAustin TV. Like that, bruv. Like that.
All right, and that'll do it for us. Thank you once again to all 500 plus of our subscribers, and thank you for everyone, whether you're subscribed or not, liking, commenting, interacting with us on social media. Go Austin, but mostly go Quakes.
Hey, good luck, guys. Good luck. I would like to see you make it into the playoffs. I really would. You guys
We hope so,
deserve being
too.
in there.
We
You guys
would,
deserve
too.
to be in there.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll see.
Alrighty.
Go Quakes.
Go Quakes.
Go Quakes.
Go Austin.